Ready, start. We are hopeful that in the revised regulations and guidelines which the National Medical Commission will issue, an inclusive attitude will be taken towards persons with disabilities from all categories, furthering the concept of reasonable accommodation recognized in the RPWD Act. Full stop. The approach of the government, instrumentalities of states, regulatory bodies, and for that matter even private sector should be, as to how best can one accommodate and grant the opportunity to the candidates with disability. Full stop. The approach should not be as to how best to disqualify the candidates and make it difficult for them to pursue and realize their educational goals. Full stop. The reasonable accommodation as defined in section 2 within bracket y of the RPWD Act should not be understood narrowly to mean only the provision of assisting devices and other tangible substances which will aid persons with disabilities. Full stop. If the mandate of the law is to ensure a full and effective participation of persons with disabilities in the society, and if the whole idea was to exclude conditions that prevent their full and effective participation as equal members of society, a broad interpretation of the concept of reasonable accommodation which will further the objective of the RPWD Act and Article 41 of the Directive Principles of State Policy is mandated. Full stop. This concept of reasonable accommodation has come in for judicial interpretation in Vikas Kumar versus UPSC, within bracket 2021 bracket close 5 SCC 370, wherein this court held that the principle of reasonable accommodation captures the positive obligation of the state and private parties to provide additional support to persons with disabilities to facilitate their full and effective participation in society. Full stop. In the specific context of disability, the principle of reasonable accommodation postulates that the conditions which exclude the disabled from full and effective participation as equal members of society have to give way to an accommodative society which accepts difference, respects their needs and facilitates the creation of an environment in which the societal barriers to disability are progressively answered. Full stop. Accommodation implies a positive obligation to create conditions conducive to the growth and fulfillment of the disabled in every aspect of their existence, whether as students, members of the workplace, participants in governance, or, on a personal plane, in realizing the fulfilling privacies of family life. Full stop. The accommodation which the law mandates is double inverted comma reasonable double inverted comma close because it has to be tailored to the requirements of each condition of disability. Full stop. The expectations which every disabled person has are unique to the nature of the disability and the character of the impediments which are encountered as its consequence. Full stop. Failure to meet the individual needs of every disabled person will breach the norm of reasonable accommodation. Full stop. Flexibility in answering individual needs and requirements is essential to reasonable accommodation. Full stop. Principle contains an aspiration to meet the needs of the class of persons facing a particular disability. Full stop. Going beyond the needs of the class, the specific requirement of individuals who belong to the class must also be accommodated. Full stop. Principle of reasonable accommodation must also account for the fact that disability based discrimination is intersectional in nature. Full stop. Disabilities assessment boards are not monotonous automations to just look at the quantified benchmark disability as set out in the certificate of disability and cast aside the candidate. Full stop. Such an approach would be antithetical to Article 14 and Article 21 and all canons of justice, equity and good conscience. Full stop. It will also defeat the salutary objectives of the RPWD Act. Full stop. The disabilities assessment boards are obliged to examine the further question as to whether the candidate, in the opinion of the experts in the field, is eligible to pursue the course, or in other words, whether the disability will or will not come in the way of the candidate pursuing the course in question. Full stop. As would be clear from the above, flexibility in answering individual needs and requirements is an essential component of reasonable accommodation. Full stop. There cannot be a double inverted comma one size fits all double inverted comma close approach. Full stop. However, in the guidelines appendix H-1 to regulations of 13/5/2019 of double inverted comma both hands intact with intact sensations sufficient strength and range of motion double inverted comma close are considered essential to be eligible for the medical course. Full stop. This prescription of double inverted comma both hands intact full stop double inverted comma close is completely antithetical to Article 41 of the Constitution. Full stop.